Thank you very much for inviting us to be here also on behalf of my colleague Falah Mustafa. It's really great and important to be with you, all of you, and thank you for coming to this event. I think the situation in Iraq and the change which happened the last 2-3 weeks in Iraq invite us, all of us, to think about the current situation and to analyze it, and also to think about the development and the future of the country. And also, when I'm talking about country, I am talking about Iraq, but also Kurdistan. I have been asked to talk about the internal situation in Iraq. Usually when nowadays I'm talking about the current events in Iraq, I'm talking about pre and post Mosul event. What does it mean, pre and Mosul event? Because then, before the events in Mosul, which started on 9th of June, Iraq was different. And after Mosul event, that means 10th of June, we got a different country. What was before Mosul event or pre-Mosul event? We had officially one country. We had an army. The terrorists, they were active in various places, but they didn't announce their state. There was so-called disputed area, and there was joint checkpoints in some areas between the Iraqi army and Kurdish forces Peshmerga, the Peshmerga. What happened after Mosul is the following. We have got a new state. A new state was born, and they call themselves Islamic State. We have got a terrorist organization, which became a state now. It was groups acting here and there, but now they announce it, and they became a state. 80% of Iraqi army has collapsed. There were 6 divisions of Iraqi army in Mosul and around Mosul area, so Salahuddin and Diyala and around Kirkuk, all of them, they collapsed. We are talking about 6. 4 of them, they belonged to Iraqi army, and 4 of them, and 2 of them to the federal police. All weapons that they had has been controlled by ISIS, or they call it nowadays ISIL, right? Or IS, Islamic State. Yeah. So they control the weapons. And they control the Sunni area. The Sunni representatives who were representing the Sunni blocs or Sunni political parties in the parliament, now most of them, they don't have bases in this area. So they are representing the, let's say, Sunni community, but they don't have bases in this area because these areas are under control of Islamic State. And Baghdad is different than before Mosul event. And instead of having the army, we have got officially militias. And when we are talking about militias, we are talking about Asayib al-Haq, Badr army, and Mahdi army. Badr units and Mahdi army. So they are officially active in Baghdad and around Baghdad. And as far as disputed area, because of the collapse of the army, Iraqi army, our Peshmerga, Kurdish fighters, they filled the vacuums. So that means the disputed area now, disputed area according to the Iraqi constitution is completely under the control of Kurdish Peshmerga. So this is a new reality. We have got, in fact, 3 states within one, but 3 states with 3 different systems. One is an Islamist, and it is an internationalist because they don't recognize the border. And they are targeting Baghdad, they are targeting Damascus, they are targeting Beirut, and they are targeting Jordan and Kuwait for the time being. And later on, I think they will target Kurdistan and other areas. But that's their program. That's their plan. And we have got Kurdistan, which is secure, which believes in democracy, tries to build a democratic process, believes in multi-ethnic society, believes in multi-religious society, believes in human rights, believes in women's rights. This is next to an so-called Islamic State. Our border now is with Islamic State and not anymore with Iraq. We have got a border of about 1,050 kilometers with Islamic states. From 1,050 kilometers, only 15 kilometers is with Iraq. The rest is with Islamic State. So there is a state between us and Baghdad. And then we have got non-functional government or a failure government in Baghdad. So you have got government in Baghdad, which is not functioning. You have got an Islamic State, which is against both, against Kurdistan and against Baghdad. And you have got Kurdistan. So this is a new reality. How are we going to deal with this? For us, the Kurds, what are we going to do? The first target is to defend our border, to defend the border of Kurdistan. So our Peshmerga forces, they are on the border of Kurdistan to defend Kurdistan from any attack by Islamic State's terrorist group. The second target is to protect our population and protect Kurdistani people. It means the Kurds, the Turkmen, the Assyrian, and some Arabs are there, but also the Muslims, the Christian, Yazidis. So because our society is multi-ethnic, multicultural, multi-religious society, we are protecting those people. This is our second target. The third one is to help those refugees and displaced people who are coming by thousands to our area. Thousands of people are running from Mosul, coming to Kurdistan. Thousands and thousands of people are running from Salahuddin, coming to Kurdistan. And before we had thousands of people from Anbar coming to Kurdistan. Almost all Christian in Mosul, they are trying to reach Kurdistan. All of them, they are leaving their area, leaving their home, coming to Kurdistan. Of course, we are following an open door policy. We are trying to help, but our capacity is also limited. We are talking about, if we will add the Syrian refugee, we have got 250,000 refugees from Syria in our area. Then we are talking about 1 million people, refugees and displaced in our area. And this also, we have got the population of the disputed area added to our population. So we are talking about 7 million, around 7 million people. We are now responsible to take care of 7 million Kurds and non-Kurds in that area. Some of them, they are refugees, some of them, they are displaced. So this needs managing the economy, managing the local government, but also managing the security. This is a new reality in Kurdistan. But there is also a new reality in Baghdad that has to do with the new process, political process. Are we going to give birth once again to a new political process in Baghdad? Is that possible? Are we responsible to do that? Can we lead that? Because people abroad are asking us to lead that, because there is a lack of leadership in Baghdad. If we lead the process, can we succeed? The last 10 years we tried. We tried to keep the unity of Iraq. But the others, they were destroying the unity of Iraq. We tried to build democracy in Iraq, but the others, they were against democracy in Iraq. We tried to tell everybody the solution for this country is to have a federal structure in Iraq. So the Sunnis, they can have their area, the Shias, they can have their area, the Kurds, they can have their area, and Baghdad can be for all of us. But they rejected that. And on the contrary, and instead of going in the direction of democracy, they were going in the direction of dictatorship. And instead of going in the direction of gradually establishing and building a federal structure, they were going in the direction of centralist system. So we, at the end, we ended up with 3 states, and they are different from each other. So with the new process, I mean, giving a rebuilding the new political process, we are going to be part of it. Yesterday, the Iraqi parliament tried to have the first meeting, they failed. So next week, they will come together. Next week, they will come together to choose the Speaker of the Parliament, the President of the country, and also the Prime Minister of the country. And of course, then, the new government. It seems yesterday they didn't reach an agreement. Many people, they think the Kurds went out. But the Sunni community, they didn't, among themselves, they didn't reach agreement about the Speaker of the Parliament, because first you must choose a Speaker of the Parliament. They didn't reach an agreement. I hope that next week there will be an agreement about the Speaker of the Parliament, and I guess the Kurds will also nominate somebody to be president of their country, because that's his Kurdish position. I mean, to have a position of president of the country is for the Kurds. And the Prime Minister is for the Shia bloc. Of course, when we are talking about Prime Minister, then we are talking about a new Prime Minister. There must be a new government. The policy has failed of the current government. People who are now in power, they are responsible for the collapse of the army. I don't put the blame, all of it, on them, but they are responsible. And big part of the country has been hijacked by terrorists. And then the question for all of us, I mean, for the Kurds, for the government of Iraq, future government of Iraq, but also for neighboring countries, for the United States, how are we going to deal with this threat? It is a threat for Kurdistan. It is a threat for Baghdad. It is a threat for Syria. It is a threat for Jordan. It is a threat for Middle Eastern countries, including Kuwait. And they are announcing that. How are we going to deal with this? And it will be a threat for international peace. If they will have their power there, and they are now busy with establishing themselves in the area, and they have got sophisticated weapons, they have got money, they have got ideology, and they have got some international support. This new Islamic State, it doesn't belong to the area. It belongs to an international terrorist organization. So it needs working together with various countries so that they will be defeated. But defeating the terrorists can start from Iraq, can start from Kurdistan and from Baghdad. We are going to follow 2 paths. One path, helping the government to be established in Baghdad. The other path is to establish ourselves, to have an independent economic life, to strengthen our forces, Peshmerga forces, to protect our area, to protect our people. So these 2 paths will continue. This is our policy. And we hope that people here in Washington understand that these 2 paths, they are not contradicting each other. But at the end, the people of Kurdistan has the right of self-determination and has the right to decide about the future of Kurdistan and future of Kurdish people there. And we hope we can reach that understanding here, but also reach that understanding in Baghdad. And this is our policy, and one of the reasons why we are here to explain the situation, to talk about the current situation, to talk about the new reality. Iraq is not one Iraq anymore. If you want to bring Iraq together, then it must be a new structure in Iraq, a different structure than it was. And you cannot bring all of them together while you have got Islamic State between Kurdistan and Baghdad. Thank you very much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be back here, and I would like to focus on the situation here today and also what has happened on the ground and how do we communicate that message to the outside world. Of course, we in Kurdistan, we believe in interacting with the outside world. We have suffered from isolation in the past, therefore we want to interact with the outside world and to communicate our message, because unfortunately, as a result of isolation, sometimes we would be blamed and we would be accused of things that we have not done, as there are some who are trying to accuse the Kurds for the failure of Iraq. Indeed, we were the only ones who have participated heavily for the success of Iraq. But there are people who are trying to cover their own failure by blaming the Kurds and letting the Kurds to be the scapegoat. So from isolation to interaction, that has been one of the principles of our foreign policy as KRG, and the open door policy, because we have tried to reach out to the international community. Second, we tried to benefit from the opportunities that we were given to turn the confrontations that we had into cooperation. So that has been a strategy from the KRG in order to have understanding with the regional powers, with the international community. So if we make any comparison between what the KRG has done and what Baghdad government has done, we will see that we have been more successful in building relations with the neighboring countries, with the Arab world, with the international community at large. Although we have not been a state like Iraq, Iraq had all the establishment of a state, but unfortunately they were not able to benefit from it. For us, a new democratic experience, we have been able to benefit because there has been a clarity of mission, but also clarity of vision from Kurdistan region. Some of the problems that have happened in Iraq, they go back to the constitution and non-commitment to the constitution and not accepting the principles of power sharing and partnership. So therefore, we the Kurds are not to be blamed for the failure in Baghdad. But why did it happen? It happened for a number of reasons. So we have political challenges, we have security challenges, and we have economic challenges. These are the main three challenges that we face today. So we would like the international community to appreciate the situation we are in, whether we talk about Kurdistan region alone or we talk about Iraq as a whole. Because as Dr. Hussein mentioned, we have to continue on the two tracks of Kurdistan so that we will not lose whatever we have achieved so far, to strengthen it, to consolidate it, because it's the only success story in Iraq. And if we were able to help the rest of Iraq to be like Kurdistan, then it depends on the cooperation of the rest of Iraq with us. But at the same time, we want the international community to view Kurdistan for what it stands for. We don't want to pay a price for the failure of Baghdad or for all the focus to be on Baghdad and ignoring Kurdistan. So therefore, talking about Kurdish participation in Iraq or in Baghdad and the political process, the international community has to recognize that there has been a big change in Iraq. So the post-Mosul era is totally different from the pre-Mosul era. There is a new reality. Kurdistan region now is in charge of an area which is larger than what it used to be before June 9, and also in terms of population, in terms of security challenges and economic challenges. The security is the Islamic State, which is a neighbor having 1,035 kilometers with KRG. Second, the economic challenge, which is over 1 million people, refugees and IDPs in Kurdistan region. Added to that, since the beginning of the year, the federal government did not fulfill its commitment, its constitutional commitment to pay the budget of Kurdistan region. So therefore, It's not only the refugees and IDPs, but also its commitment to provide budget for KRG, which is a recognized, legitimate government for the people of Kurdistan. Then the political challenge. Kurdish participation in the political process in Iraq is conditional. Conditional that it has to be in light of the change that have taken place. And also for us, we do not want to go back to the same stories of 10 years ago. Either we would be respected for who we are, because Iraq is made up of two main nationalities and other national minorities. Either we would be equal partners and we will be partners in the decision making, or we have to revisit this relationship and the nature of the relationship that exists between Erbil and Baghdad. So therefore, our call upon the United States, the international community, the neighboring countries to look at Kurdistan and our governance in the last decade or two. If we go back to the Kurdish uprising of 1991, we have proven to everyone that we are a factor for stability. We have proven to everyone that in spite of all the challenges that we had internally and externally, but we succeeded in introducing a new democratic experience. And the last cabinet that was formed recently is a broad-based cabinet in Kurdistan region, which we were expecting that there would be challenges. That's why we have waited longer than expected to be united. Next to that, we have formed a Kurdish negotiation team so that when we are in Baghdad, we will speak with one voice and we will speak unitedly. So therefore, thanks to the Kurdish leadership, there is a vision and also there is a plan on how to deal with the challenges that we are facing. For us, what we want to see is that we do not want to go back to a failed experience, an experience that has failed. We do not want to go back to unfulfilled promises. Iraq had a constitution. It was a constitution that the majority of the peoples of Iraq have voted for. But unfortunately, it was not implemented. So shall we go back again and see that non-implementation of the constitution? That's a big question. Second, we also want to stress the fact that these changes require a new track from the international community. Not only focusing on Baghdad. Baghdad and Erbil have to be seen equally. Because today there is public opinion in Kurdistan. 2 generations have been born in freedom and democracy. They have not seen good intentions from Baghdad. That's why it's not only the Kurdish leadership that has to be satisfied, it's the Kurdish public opinion that needs to be satisfied that Baghdad is a good Baghdad, Baghdad is a better Baghdad. But so far they have not seen that Baghdad. Going back to history, Iraq is an artificial state. It was a state put together to keep some balances between the Shias and Sunnis. And anything that is built on wrong foundations will not survive. Unless it's voluntary, unless it's through an understanding among the communities. Since the establishment of the Iraqi state, we have never felt that we are partners in this country. We have never been treated as partners. So therefore, the international community also has to realize that we as Kurds have paid a huge price in the past. Today, time has come for the Kurdish characteristics, Kurdish identity, Kurdish aspirations to be respected. We have not gone beyond what the limits of the constitution ask for. What we wanted for our identity and characteristics to be respected so that we can focus on rebuilding Kurdistan region. A region we have inherited 4,500 villages destroyed by Saddam Hussein regime. We were expecting that the federal government in Baghdad would come forward in order to help us rebuild. We've inherited 5,000 people who were killed in the chemical gassing of Halabja. We were expecting that the federal government comes forward to compensate them. The 182,000 people who were lost on the notorious Anfal operations. We were expecting that Baghdad would come forward to apologize and also to compensate for them. These have not happened. Indeed, what we have seen, the Iraqi army to be moved against Kurdish people and against Peshmerga forces. That was a true reminder of Baghdad has not changed. So therefore, that tragic history shapes our policies. It's a feeling of uncertainty that we have in Iraq that we would like the international community to understand. A few years ago, we had a tense relationship with Turkey. But we were hopeful and we were optimistic that we will be able, given the opportunity to communicate our message, we will be able to establish a good relationship. We are very pleased to say that today we have a good relationship with Turkey. We are optimistic about the future of these relationships, and we see them as long-term and strategic. It just needed interaction. It just needed a platform in order to communicate the message. Likewise, we have good relations with our other neighbor, Iran. And we have been able to reach out to the Arab countries, with Jordan, with UAE, with Kuwait, with other Arab countries. We enjoy very good relations. Today, we have 31 diplomatic representation accredited to Kurdistan, based in Erbil. 5 of them are the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, and 5 are from the Arab countries, and the rest from Europe, United States, and elsewhere. Day after day, Kurdistan is making progress. But indeed, we do not want that to be put on hold. We want the international community to understand that we have done everything we could to help the political process in Iraq, but at the same time, we want to be helped so that we continue building our democratic institutions, rule of law, the empowerment of women, greater participation of the civil society institutions, etc. We cannot do it alone, and we do not want to live isolated from the rest of the world. And we have given enough to Baghdad. We have contributed positively to protect Iraq in terms of the army, in terms of the political process, but that was not reciprocated. What we want to see is that a new foundation, if Iraq were to succeed, then there has to be a new foundation, a new basis of this relationship. We cannot go back to pre-June 9th, but certainly we have got aspirations. We want to have more sovereignty, we want to have more economic autonomy, and we want to have more political autonomy. Because this is the least that we can do. As a people, we have the right to self-determination, but that doesn't stop where we have to live under the mercy of Baghdad for Baghdad to decide to cut our budget, to tell us that you have to do this and you have to do that. So it's over that time. If there is will in Baghdad, we are ready to be good partners to build a new and a better Iraq, but also to have a better Kurdistan to enjoy good relations with the international community. With that, I would stop and would welcome any question later on. Thank you.
I'm going to take the prerogative of the chair and ask the first question, which picks up on a very interesting and important comment that Dr. Hussein made about the new border between the Kurdistan region and the Islamic State. Especially in your newly expanded territory, you've got, you say, a border of over 1,000 kilometers with, not with Iraq, but with a new Islamic state, terrorist state, as you put it. So I want to ask you what, in your view, should be the next steps in defending yourselves against that threat and in confronting or defeating, if possible, this threat from the Islamic State, and what do you see as the desirable and realistic American role in that? Thank you.
The threat is real, and it is not only a threat against Kurdistan, but it will be a threat. It is a threat to Baghdad. It is a threat to Turkey because it is also on the border with Turkey, and they are trying to reach the border of Iranian to be a threat to Iran. And in the statement which has been given by their leader yesterday, it is obvious that they are threatening everybody. So what can we do? We, the Kurds, as I said, we try to protect our area. But of course, this is not enough. I mean, if this threat will stay, we need an international cooperation. We need cooperation from neighboring countries, but also help and support from the United States, because it is a threat to all of us. It is not only a threat to the territory, it is a threat to the values, it is a threat to the interest, it is a threat to every individual and every group. It is a threat to others than people who belong to Islamic State. The leader yesterday, when I read, it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, when I read his statement, he divided the world into two. The world of Islam, or peace, he called it, and the world of war, non-believers. And the only world that belongs to him is his territory. So the rest is the world of fight, the world of war. So that means, of course, when they will start with the neighbors. And we are on the other side. Turkey is on the north, and Baghdad south, and they are trying to reach Iran. But on the other side, they have got Syria and Jordan. So in the first place, they are a threat to us, but later they will be a threat to everybody. When we are talking about this threat, we are realistic. On long term, we need support and help. And the United States can help us. We have got our forces. We don't need United States forces to be there. But we need equipment. They have got the most sophisticated weapons in their hands. And they are all American weapons. They were all American weapons which has been given to the Iraqi army. And now they are in the hands of terrorists. This is the new reality, another new reality. So who is going to challenge those? I mean, the Iraqi army doesn't exist or is very weak. So the Kurds are there, but the Kurds, they can defend their territory, but they cannot liberate other areas. So if we want to liberate other areas from those terrorists, we need an international cooperation. Helping the Kurds to strengthen their military power, giving the Kurds equipment, giving the Kurds weapons, but also allowing the Kurds to sell their oil. Because we can have our money. We're not receiving money from Baghdad anymore. Since January, Baghdad is not sending even the budget, the salary of the employees of the government. So we need, of course, financial resources. We have got our oil. We can sell it, and we can build our economy. Besides that, we must take care of 7 million people. How can we do that without having financial resources? So we are not asking others to pay us money. We are asking others, especially United States, to allow us, because they are putting some pressure on various governments so that our oil will not be sold in the international oil market. That's all. We can fight those people because we believe in our cause. We can fight those people because we have got forces. We can fight those people because we are defending a right cause. We are defending democracy. We are defending our country. But we need support and help, especially from the United States. Yes, thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you for your very candid remarks. I don't want to cause differences between the two of you, but my ear heard something very interesting. First, we had a two-principle policy. We're going to stay in Baghdad, and we're going to build our nation in Kurdistan. But then we heard that staying in Baghdad is conditional, was your term. So if I could ask you, what exactly triggers the end of that principle? Or to put it differently, what triggers independence? A word that neither of you used in your opening remarks.
Maybe it was a generational change.
We believe, our generation, we believe in democracy. We fought for democracy. So we allow other generation to think a different way. But we are not on different paths. No. It is the same. It is the same. You see, to be in Baghdad, of course, there must be a Baghdad which believes in these values, which I mentioned. I mean, we must build a democratic Iraq, democratic system, a federal structure. If they don't believe in it, and until now they didn't believe, they didn't do that, is it possible for them to do that? This is a question for us. So when my colleague Falah is talking about conditional, It is not only about a person, to have a person as prime minister and then to remove him and to bring somebody else. It is about the culture. It is about the ideology. It is about the system that they believe in. If we are not going in the direction of restructuring Iraq radically towards federalism and towards democracy, then we cannot be part of that system. We cannot be part of that system. At the same time, we were talking about second path. Second path, we mentioned, both of us. We were talking about self-determination, the right of self-determination of Kurdistani people. And when we are talking about exercising that right, our people will decide which kind of that right they will exercise. I mean, we are talking about having referendum. I don't know when. My president is going to the parliament tomorrow. Kurdish parliament, and of course we are going to ask our people what do they want. And having a referendum, that doesn't mean we will implement the result of the referendum directly, but at the end our people will vote and they will say we want that. When are we going to implement let's say the result of the referendum? That depends on the situation, that depends on the process in Baghdad, that depends on negotiation with other countries. But we are heading towards a different direction. The Kurdish people has the right of self-determination, and one day we will implement that right, and according to the desire of our people.
I was going to ask a question very similar to Rob's, but let me pursue it a bit more deeply. What are the specific things you have to have in the way of automatic payments or in the way of relative independence, autonomy, whatever you want to call it, from Baghdad, in order to stay? What do you think you could sell to the people of Kurdistan to allow you to stay inside Iraq? And where are the red lines that would force you out?
We are not going back to the old situation. And the old situation, when I'm talking about old situation, then going back to before 9th of June. That's impossible. It was difficult to have a common path with Baghdad. They were rejecting everything which has to do with the constitution. They were not implementing the constitution. They were violating the constitution. So that means we cannot go back. Second, if this Islamic State will stay between us and Baghdad, we can not reach Baghdad. We don't have a border with Iraq anymore. We must fly to Baghdad. They must, when they are coming to Erbil, nowadays they are flying. So as if we are going to another country. If Baghdad wants us to stay, it is not that we must change. It is Baghdad that must change. They must recognize the right of self-determination of the Kurds. We can have different relations with each other. When I'm talking about right of self-determination, the Kurds can have their own independent country, own independent state. But when we will have a democratic government in Baghdad, and they can have also then their territory, we can combine and to have a kind of confederation between two states. Having said that, I'm talking about the third state between us, because there is a third state. And then, of course, we must cooperate how to challenge the new third state, which is a threat for all of us. Because with having a third state between us and a state which threatens everything, we cannot live easily. I mean, it will be a nightmare having as a neighbor next to you, and you don't feel secure. Neither Baghdad will secure. So we can cooperate. We can cooperate to be, Erbil and Baghdad, they must be equal. How are we going to give definition to this relationship? We must sit down, negotiate, and that's why we are talking about two paths. Path towards Baghdad and path building ourselves. We can negotiate with Baghdad about the future of the rest of country, the rest of the Iraq, and about Kurdistan, so that if we can cooperate with each other, then that will be good. If not, then that means we can choose two different paths.
To put it shortly, we will not be guests in Baghdad, because the way they have been treating us as if we were guests in Baghdad, it's over. What we ask for more political, economic, and sovereign power in Kurdistan region. And this is the least that our people can accept from us.
Sir, I'd like to ask you just to clarify the point you just made and follow on the previous question. When you say that if Kurdistan is to remain a part of a new Iraq, there needs to be a new Iraq and that acknowledges the new facts on the ground, are the new geographic facts on the ground negotiable, or are they not negotiable for Kurdistan? Is Kirkuk and the disputed territories that the Peshmerga have now moved into forever to be part of Kurdistan, not on the negotiating table with your Iraqi partners, and that has to be recognized if you're to remain part of Iraq? Or would you negotiate territory, yielding back some of that territory? And lastly, you made the point there needs to be a new prime minister. Clearly, part of the process is to pick a new prime minister, but did you mean to say you're explicitly ruling out Nouri al-Maliki as a potential prime minister for a third term? Thank you.
As far as Kirkuk and other areas, these areas has been covered by Article 140 from the Constitution of Iraq. And the same article is about implementation of the process of a legal process in this area is the duty of Iraqi government. Iraqi government didn't do that. They didn't implement that article. So we can implement that article. How are we going to implement that article? Now the territory is under the control of the Kurdish Peshmerga. I think it is the right of the population of Kirkuk and other areas to vote. So in a referendum, they can decide their future. And I think my president also made it clear the other day that when we will have a referendum in Kurdistan, the referendum in Kurdistan, it will be about something else, but the referendum in territory, in disputed territory, which has been covered, as I said, by the Constitution, we can have a referendum about their future and their relationship with Kurdistan. So at the end, the people will decide. It is not about negotiation with Baghdad. It is about the votes and the desire of the people in Kirkuk. And through a referendum, the future of these areas will be decided. As far as Prime Minister, it is not only we. I mean, the Prime Minister, if I was Nouri Maliki, then I will go to the parliament, I would say, I'm sorry, I couldn't manage this country, so I will leave. But it seems he doesn't recognize that. He doesn't recognize that he was a failure manager. And so the Sunnis, they don't want Nouri Maliki. The Kurds, they don't want to have Nouri Maliki again as prime minister. But also the main two political parties among the Shia, they don't want to have Nouri Maliki as a prime minister. I think Nouri Maliki period is finished, so we must wait for another one to be in charge.
Thanks very much. Good to see you both back here again. First of all, I believe President Barzani has said that there will be a referendum on independence, although he did not say when. So can you confirm that this is...
He said that, but tomorrow
he said
is
that
going
to the
to
BBC.
the parliament. He said there will be a referendum, but he didn't say when. He didn't say about what. He didn't say which question.
All right.
So tomorrow he's going to the parliament to discuss these matters.
Okay. The other.
What did he say?
I don't know. I'm here.
Let's face it, you've been talking about independence for a very, very long time, certainly as long as I've known both you gentlemen. Are you getting a more receptive response from the Obama administration for the idea of not just more autonomy, but independence? Or are they telling you, you can have more autonomy, perhaps we will let you sell your oil, but we don't want you to break away entirely from Iraq? And is that also the same view that one hears from the Turks and from the Iranians? Because as we know, they have considerable Kurdish populations, and it would seem that many people can accept more power, more sovereignty, but not independence
What does it
for
mean,
Kurdistan?
more power, more sovereignty?
I'm asking you. In other words, can you have de facto independence without actually splitting from Iraq? And is the U.S. government okay with that?
Well, indeed, the right to self-determination and independence is a given right. But the reality is on the ground, and the international circumstances, the regional powers, are to be blamed. We were divided against the will of our people to be minorities in 4 countries. We have accepted that. But we wanted to live in peace and in partnership. That was rejected. That was our problem. And de facto independence, yes, we had it from 1991 to 2003. When we defied Saddam Hussein, we had our own international relations, we had our own trade, the economy was different, even the currency which was in circulation in Kurdistan was different from the one that was circulating in the rest of Iraq. But in 2003, when there was an opportunity to secure a better future, we believed in that. We were in the front to support the United States' liberation of Iraq, and for that we are thankful and grateful. And we have said it publicly, that the United States provided an opportunity for all of Iraq to build a democracy and a better future for everyone. We in Kurdistan, we benefited from that. Unfortunately, the rest of Iraq did not. Therefore, what we hear today from the international community, be it the United States, be it France, be it Italy, being Turkey and the neighboring countries, there is more and more understanding of the Kurdish position. It's not like the past to be never. There is no rejection. There is more understanding and more reception to that. But the Kurdish leadership is also wise. The Kurdish leadership does not rush into a conclusion, and we do not jump over the situation. We want to secure a better future for the people of Kurdistan, and we will do everything we can to do it peacefully through understanding and negotiations. We do understand that without the support of the neighboring countries, or at least some of them, without the support of some of the main powers in the world, the United States included, we cannot have it survive. Because at the end of the day, even if we go down the road to independence, we want international recognition. We do not want our people to suffer more. So that's why we are patient. We are trying to build the momentum. We are trying to build the solidarity and support. And we want to show our friends before our the adversaries that we have done everything in order to help the process in Iraq. But when it fails, it would not be the Kurds to be blamed, and then the Kurds should not be obliged to stay as part of that country. Because even if we decide to be independent, then we will stay as neighbors to Iraq. That's why we want to have a better understanding with the future neighbor as well.
Dennis.
Yeah, I want to follow up on what Barbara was asking, be a little bit more precise. Up until now, when I think you've been talking to the administration has been rather cool to the idea of you selling your oil, obviously, and they've also been, I think, basically emphasizing the importance of maintaining the central government and its power. Are you hearing a different message this time, now that you're here? Are you seeing an administration that is somewhat more receptive to the 2 paths that you've laid out? And let me ask one other question, as long as I have the mic. Do you have, within Iraq, do you see alternative candidates for Prime Minister who might look at the Kurds as being something other than a guest when they come to Baghdad?
Of course, we are not here to speak on behalf of the American administrations, but as Secretary of the State was in Erbil a week ago or 10 days ago, and he was in Baghdad. And everybody knows that there is a new reality in Iraq, everybody. So if the new policy will not reflect the new reality, that means I don't know which kind of policy will be that. So there is movement in various directions to understand the new reality. And in our discussion here in Washington, we feel that different. We feel that they are ready to listen and to understand what's going on exactly, and to listen to our opinion about not only what's going on now, but what it must be done, and about the future of the country. We are still in discussion with them, but we have the feeling that the understanding here is different. I mean, comparing with the various visits that we had to Washington in the past, now it is different. It is different, but it is up to them to announce that. And I think within a short time, there must be, let's say, various pieces of policy as far as dealing with Baghdad and dealing with Erbil, but also as far as dealing with this new state, Islamic State. The whole area has been changed, and it will continue. Some of them in the wrong direction as Islamic State, but the other one, it is, I mean, the Kurdish people is dealing with this crisis, but at the same time, this crisis is offering opportunities. Opportunities which is not against the law, which is not against the Iraqi constitution, but which is also not against the right of the Kurds. This new opportunity for the Kurds is important, and we are trying to deal with that and to try to convince others, including the United States, that there must be a new policy. And one-door policy, depending on Iraq, only an Iraq policy. I mean, dealing only with Baghdad, I think it is not a right policy. There is Baghdad, there is Erbil, and you have got another state. So dealing with Baghdad, it must be different. Dealing with Erbil, it must be different. And all of us, we must work together to deal with the new state, which is Islamic State.
I believe that there has been a recognition of the Kurdish tragic past, a recognition for the Kurds to have a better future, and there has been a change in the statement. So we have felt that from the United States, but other members of the international community. As for the second part of the question, indeed, it's not about the changing of personality and the faces. For example, we have other partners in Baghdad. Behind the closed doors, they tell us, yes, you have the right to receive your budget. But we don't want that to be behind the closed doors. We would have wanted that to be in the public, in places like this, to put pressure on Baghdad. We would have liked from the international community and from the United Nations to put pressure on Baghdad to provide the KRG budget in a timely manner and fashion. Therefore, there has been a change 6 months ago and a month ago, because the reality on the ground after June 9, it imposed itself, and the international community has to adapt to that change.
David, my name is Syed Erikat. I'm a Palestinian journalist, but I too had the honor of meeting both Dr. Hussein and Bakir, and both in Erbil and in Baghdad. Dr. Hussein, my question is to you, and it follows on the same theme. You know, I mean, let's face it, Iraq, for all practical purposes, there is a de facto partition today. What kind of mechanism could you employ to have a clean break, to have the soft landing, so to speak? And how could you, let's say, alleviate whatever fears, let's say, that the Sunni state might have in terms of being oil poor or, you know, in exchange for water or whatever? How do you see this happening? Thank you.
De facto partition, or Iraq is divided, yes, that's the reality. That's part of the reality which we are talking about. How are we going to deal with this de facto partition? I mean, are we going to unite it again? But who's going to unite it again? To unite Iraq again, that means you must wage a war, fight against the terrorist state, and clean the area from terrorists. That's a good target. But who is going to do that? We don't have an Iraqi army, or we don't have an army which can fight now. As I said, the majority of the army units has collapsed. Is the United States ready to send troops to Iraq again? I guess no. The answer is no. is Turkey ready to attack this neighboring state so that we can be liberated, or the people there, Sunni people, can be liberated? I guess no, because as we know, Turkey supported the opposition in Syria for the last 3 years, but Turkish government didn't decide to send its army to Syria. So I don't think Turkish army is coming to Iraq to liberate Mosul or other areas. Is not NATO ready to do that? That means the American plus the European? I don't think so. What about the Iranian? Are they ready to send their army to Sunni areas to liberate Sunni areas? I don't think so. I think the Iranian, they are ready to defend Baghdad and to defend Samarra and to defend Balad. But further than that, I don't think the Iranian will do that. We, the Kurds, can we do that? We can defend our area, but we cannot go deep in Arab areas and fight the terrorists there. It will be difficult for us. So this is the reality. The main question for many of us is how durable this state, I mean Islamic State, will be. And who's going to fight this state? And if we are not going to fight this state, all of us together, then it will be stronger and it will reach many other places. It will be a real threat to many other states. So that's why we are saying that there is a new reality and it needs a new policy. It needs a new coordination on various fields, on security, military, economic, and political fields. As far as Iraq, we must deal with that reality. Until we will finish this job, we cannot talk about a united Iraq, to be honest. We can talk about a good relationship between Erbil and Baghdad. I'm talking about good relationship between Erbil, an equal relationship between Erbil and Baghdad. It is in our interest to have good relationship with Baghdad. It is in Baghdad's interest also to have good relationship with Erbil. But we can invest this relationship also in our contact with the outside world so that first we can protect ourselves, I mean protect the area of Baghdad and around Baghdad, and protect Kurdistan, and then to build our forces so that we can liberate the other areas. Otherwise, this new state will stay there as a neighbor and Iraq will be divided. Not because of the constitution, not because of on the basis of soft partition, not on the basis of agreement, but on the basis of security lines. And then it will be divided. Thank you.
Trudy Rubin from the Philadelphia Inquirer. In talking about who is going to fight this new state, firstly, could you tell us whether you think it is possible to turn Sunni tribes against ISIS, and if so, would that be enough to make the difference, and where do the Baathists fit in to this mix? So is there an inner Iraqi dynamic here? Secondly, do you want the U.S. to give you, the Kurds, weapons to fight? And lastly, Iran. This is a threat to Iran. Do you believe at this point that Iran wants a new structure inside Iraq, or is Qasem Soleimani still clinging to the current structure and to Nouri al-Maliki? Thank you.
Good questions.
Many questions in one, just like Iraq. Many countries in one. These awakening movement or tribes, which started in, it has been established in 2006, 2007. You see, as far as these tribes, many of them now either they were frightened and they joined ISIS or supporting ISIS, or they left the area and people, as I mentioned in the beginning, in my introduction, thousands and thousands of people are leaving the area and they are coming to Kurdistan. So there must be pressure from both sides, or from within, or from above. From within, that means there must be resistance. Resistance against those terrorist groups. But who is going to resist? I mean, awakening movement in the past, with all respect for those people who were engaged, it was not a success story. We know what happened. We know why it happened. We know who paid. And now who is going to pay? Who's going to organize? At that time, the American army they were there. So a tribal leader who was fighting the, let's say, terrorists, he could depend on the American army. And they have been paid. But now, depending on who? So if these tribes, they will be able to organize or reorganize themselves so that they can create a kind of resistance in these areas, who's going to support them? This is the first question. And support, it means military, it means financially, it means leading them, it means sometimes getting them as a refugee in your area. Who's going to do that? I don't see any. I mean, they are refugees with us. Many tribal leaders now, Arab tribal leaders, they are refugees in Kurdistan. And not only that, to be honest, now representative of Sunni community, most of them, those who are representing the Sunni community in the parliament, either they are in Erbil or in Amman, and they fly to Baghdad. So they cannot go back to their own area. So to create resistance from within, it will be difficult. But that doesn't mean within this new state there are not people who are not against those, but they don't have power. If we analyze the political organizations which are working with ISIS, we see all they have got Islamist background. I mean, we are talking about al-Qaeda, which is old al-Qaeda structure. They are weaker than ISIS. We are talking about ISIS. We are talking about Naqshbandiya units, which are mixed Ba'athist and Islamist. And nowadays they are more close to Islamist. We are talking about Islamic Army. We are talking about Mujahideen units. We are talking about Thawrat al-Ashrin revolution units. These are all Islamists. And we are talking about Ansar al-Sunnah, Ansar al-Islam, and Ba'ath Party. So these are the organizations which are active in this area. But gradually, from 9th of June until now, the information that we receive is that Daesh people, they are almost controlling the field. They are stronger because they have got their weapons in their hand. They have got organizations. Their ideology is more clear than others. They have got money. They have got training. And they have got leadership. While the others, there is lack of leadership. So gradually, Daesh is going to be the biggest organization, and the others, they will follow, or they will disappear. So from within, it will be difficult to destroy this state from within. If there will be pressure from outside, then there is a possibility that some of these organizations, which I mentioned, they will be in conflict with ISIS, and there will be fight among themselves. But this is all has to do with big if. If there will be pressure from outside, if there will be attack from the outside, if there will be an army from outside, if there will be a strong support from outside. It is difficult. It's not easy.
And the question of weapons, and do you want U.S. weapons, and also what does Qasim Soleimani want at this point?
U.S. weapons? No, I don't want U.S. weapons. No, we don't want that. You see, of course, when we are talking about fighting, we need weapons. But the U.S. weapons now in the hands of the terrorists, unfortunately, and instead of being in the hands of the friends. And this is, I mean, all of us, not only U.S. People here, but we too, we must rethink about these things. I mean, giving weapons to everybody and then at the end up with the terrorists, this is disaster. You see, if those terrorist groups, they were there, as they were before 9 June, it was easier to fight them. But after 9 June, they became a large army with the most sophisticated weapons that they have got from Iraqi army. So to challenge them, to fight them, you need weapons, of course.
Iran, Qasem Soleimani.
What do you want from him?
You guys know him.
No. I'm talking about Iran. Iran is a state. We are not talking about the individual. Iran state has got its interest. And Iran is a neighboring country. We respect our relationship with Iran. We want to have good relationship with Iran. But Iran has got also interest in Iraq. That's, I mean, many other countries also, they have got their interest in Iraq. I think the Iranian interest is also to fight those terrorist groups, because this is also a threat. It is not only a threat for their national security. For Iranian, it is also an ideological threat, because they are depending on different theory and different interpretation of Islam. So it is a threat for us, a threat for Baghdad. It is a threat for Turkey. It is a threat for Iran. So that's why I think at the end, if we can work together, all of us, plus support and help from United States, then we can defeat this new phenomena, political phenomena, which is a nightmare for all of us.
Indeed, addressing the three questions. The first, there has to be progress in the political sphere or track in order for the Sunnis to revolt against that. So unless there is some hope for them, some confidence that they would have a better future, they would not do it, because it's part of the Shia-Sunni power struggle. Yes, the Kurds would like to have weapons, but defensive weapons so that they would protect the people. We do not have intentions to be on the offensive. And indeed, even fighting outside Kurdistan area, this is not something welcomed by neither our people nor the leadership, because it's not our responsibility. It's the responsibility of those who fail to protect them, of those who have gotten all the support internationally and locally to do it, and they have not done it. And second, about the interference of the neighbors. If the United States does not step in, then the door would be open for all these neighbors to step in and interfere. And there is a lot of proxy war going on, and there is a lot of contradicting interests there. Therefore, either we have a win-win situation for those who have got interest in this, or it would end up in a zero-sum game, and zero-sum game would not be in the interest of stability and security of that area.
Hilo Fratkin of the Hudson Institute, and like others, I'd like to thank both Dr. Hussein and Minister Bakir for their hospitality in Erbil. And I wanted to ask first your judgment of the vulnerability of Baghdad itself at this point to further advances by the Islamic State. And second, I take from your remarks and in response to the last question, or maybe several of the most recent questions, you pose the question of whether the Islamic State will be durable. And it seems to me from what you say, you expect it to be fairly durable. Whether or not the current and new caliph is in charge of it, or one of the other, perhaps, Islamist groups. In that event, if it is going to remain on the scene for quite some time, do you think it will be therefore necessary for there to be a serious and long-term relationship between the Kurdish Regional Government and United States forces? Because as you pointed out, the question is who is going to address a threat this large?
Yeah. Baghdad is under threat still. I believe that the target of Islamic State is to reach Baghdad. And they are not so far away from some areas, especially from south of Baghdad, from Anbar, and areas which belong to Salah ad-Din. But they are there. And one thing we must not forget. In the past, we have seen terrorist attacks inside Baghdad. So sometimes 10 attacks in a day. So that means they are also in Baghdad, not from outside. Baghdad is still under the threat. There are some areas in Baghdad which is, I think, belongs to their target, especially the airport. But people in Baghdad and the government, and I think they are well equipped, and people in Baghdad, they are determined to defend Baghdad. As far as this state, I think if this state will stay for a long time, it will be a threat for all of us. So we must sit together as soon as possible, because not to allow it to be durable. Otherwise, it will be a real threat for the whole area. So the question for us is, are we going to deal with this reality and accept it, or we are going to reject this reality? And this is not a reality that you can deal with it. This is not a reality that you can negotiate it. It's not a reality that you can live with it. It is a reality, if it will stay, it will kill you. So it is dangerous. So it needs cooperation. One of the reasons why we are here and we are trying to talk about this new reality is this. It is dangerous for all of us. Today is not, perhaps they are not attacking the Kurds. Today they are more targeting Baghdad, but tomorrow they will attack. Mm-hmm. Today they are not attacking the Turks, but tomorrow they will do that. Today they couldn't reach the Iranian border, but tomorrow they will reach the Iranian border. So it is dangerous for all of us.
Well, say that we are for long-term engagement and relations with the United States, and this is an issue that we have made it clear that we are against terrorism and we want to fight terrorism because now this is a threat, and we want them to be there in order to provide stability and security in the long run.
On that very sobering note, I want to say, as the Kurds say, Zor spas, thank you very much. Min dulum khosha, my heart is sweet. And thank all of you and thank our guests very much for this very important discussion.